Hello, this video is for lesson 6.16, preparing for the unit test. Okay, we have online and offline review activities, and then there's a checkpoint at the end. Begin your review of the Toward a New Millennium unit online by going through the following activities. When you have finished, follow the directions in the student guide to complete the lesson. Okay, so the first two, Electoral College in the United States and Eastern Europe and Beyond, were activities we've done in prior lessons. So I'm not going to go through them entirely in this video. I'm just going to pop them up on the screen so you can refamiliarize yourself with what they looked like and then complete them on your own.
Each citizen's vote on election day helps determine who will be part of a group of people called electors. The group of electors is known as the Electoral College, and their votes are called electoral votes. The Constitution gives every state the same number of electoral votes as the...
I'm just going to stop there. Hopefully that jogged your memory of doing that in a prior lesson, and you will need to complete that rest of it on your own. It's a great review for the test, so please complete that on your own. And I'll show you the same for the Eastern Europe and Beyond activity. That was from a prior lesson, and we'll just kind of briefly pop it up on the screen so you can refamiliarize yourself with what it was about. So for this one, you go through the plus signs to read about them, and then on the next screen you go through by dragging and dropping where those areas were on the map. And then Unit 6 review of flashcards. Let's see if we can get this one. So we have flashcards, trends, technology, and demographics, the Clinton presidency, and terrorism, and we need to go through the activity. We shouldn't have the word already. Let's go through that again. All right, the first one, trends, technology, and demographics. Business trends in the 1990s included all the following except outsourcing services overseas, globalization, offshoring production of goods, and providing pensions for workers. And that one that does not fit is providing pensions for workers. And then you click down there to go to next card, and you'll continue going through all of these cards. And at the end you will get a word, so make sure you get that keyword because that's probably the one you'll need for the end of the checkpoint, for the end of lesson checkpoint. But go through these, you can shuffle them around, make sure you go through each category, go through all of them, and make sure you're really good at those flashcards. Now to go on, we have the chapter highlights, so let's read through the chapter highlights. By 1980, Americans were dissatisfied with President Carter's handling of the economy and the Iran hostage situation. Known as the Great Communicator, Ronald Reagan changed the face of the electorate by attracting voters throughout the South and reinvigorating conservatives. President Reagan survived an assassination attempt and introduced supply-side theory of economics that came to be known as Reaganomics. Reagan's economic plan stimulated the economy, but the gap between the rich and poor widened and the national debt tripled. Reagan oversaw government deregulation that benefited industry, but left the environment susceptible and savings and loan institutions open to failure. Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman to serve as a Supreme Court justice. Reagan vigorously opposed communism, called for increased military spending, and worked with Soviet leader Gorbachev to ease Cold War tensions. Reagan's vice president, George H.W. Bush, succeeded him as president and served during the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union. Bush presided over what he described as a new world order and responded with force when Iraq invaded Kuwait, but avoided overthrowing Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein and occupying Baghdad. Entrepreneurs Bill Gates and Steve Jobs made computers accessible to schools, homes, and businesses. Looking historically at the contemporary times of a new millennium may not always offer the depth of reflection given to the more distant past, but it does provide a significant beginning to understanding the times in which one lives. More impressive beginnings came with the digital revolution that began in the 60s, boomed in the 1990s, and featured personal computers, the internet, the World Wide Web, and many new services. The high-tech boom began in the Silicon Valley in California, but the information economy soon shifted to a global phenomenon as U.S. companies began outsourcing production and services to other countries in order to reduce costs. Demographic trends brought increases in the number of immigrants, changes in their national origins, more frequent illegal immigration, and a graying of America as the general population aged. The 1992 election included third-party challenge with the candidacy of Ross Perot and resulted in the election of former Arkansas Governor and Rhodes Scholar William Jefferson Clinton. The North American Free Trade Act, NAFTA, intended to stimulate trade with Mexico and Canada, also stimulated debate and controversy as some Americans lost jobs. President Clinton and his wife, Hillary Rodham Clinton, initiated an unsuccessful examination of health care and how it could be provided more equitably and efficiently. President Clinton also recognized the needs of women and families through the Family and Medical Leave Act, as well as through his cabinet appointments of women, including the first woman appointed Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright. Vice President Al Gore took the lead in addressing environmental issues and global warming, but the United States did not sign the Kyoto Protocol that a world meeting had intended to limit greenhouse emissions. Cultural issues related to abortion, gun control, and gays in the military played out during the Clinton years, with conflict between liberals and conservatives bringing different perspectives to these issues. During the last years of his second term, President Clinton was impeached but not removed from office for lying in court about an immoral act. The Clinton presidency ended a century and welcomed a new age as technology changed world communication and global interaction. President Clinton's two terms saw several foreign crises, including a civil war in Bosnia, a military coup in Haiti, famine in Somalia, and genocide in Rwanda. In April 1995, a disgruntled Gulf War veteran bombed the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. In the presidential election of 2000, a Supreme Court decision not to allow a recount in Florida led to the election of a Republican, George W. Bush, though Democrat Al Gore won the popular vote. George Bush's domestic policy initiatives included a major tax cut, the expansion of Medicare, the No Child Left Behind Act, and faith-based initiatives. Bush expanded the use of executive privilege, drawing criticism for endangering the constitutional principle of separation of powers. Osama bin Laden helped found al-Qaeda, whose goals included driving Americans out of all Islamic nations, destroying Israel, and toppling pro-Western governments in the Middle East. On September 11, 2001, al-Qaeda launched attacks on the United States, killing nearly 3,000 people. In response to the attacks on 9/11, U.S.-led troops invaded Afghanistan with the goals of toppling the Taliban regime and finding bin Laden. The U.S. government took steps to strengthen security. Airports implemented more comprehensive security screening procedures, the Department of Homeland Security was created, and the Patriot Act became law. U.S. intelligence reports indicate that Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein was attempting to acquire weapons of mass destruction. U.S. troops invaded Iraq to remove Saddam Hussein from power, discover and destroy any weapons of mass destruction, and create conditions for a democracy to emerge in Iraq. Many argued against invading Iraq, citing the catastrophic results of modern warfare and the desire to let diplomacy work its course, and criticizing the resolution authorizing Bush to invade Iraq as giving the president unchecked power. The Bush White House increased funding for millions of AIDS victims in Africa and acted to help reduce violence in the Darfur region of Sudan. In August 2005, Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast, killing more than 1,800 people and causing tens of billions of dollars worth of property damage. State and federal governments faced criticism for the mishandling of the crisis. The presidential election of 2008 was a historic, groundbreaking election, with candidates from a great variety of backgrounds. Americans elected Barack Obama, the first African American president. And then don't forget to do the 6.16 checkpoint at the end. Review all the lessons from Unit 6. It's a big lesson, so make sure you take your time. Go through all the lessons. Look through your reading guides. Skim through the reading if you feel that would be helpful. Look at your old quizzes and checkpoints. And just study and prepare to take your Unit 6 test. And then the last thing you'll have after Unit 6 test is the final exam. So best of luck on your Unit 6 test.